Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you about a single principle that is missed by many people on the internet right now. Judging by some of the comments I get in my comment section and the trolling that I'm getting, this one principle is totally missed, and I don't understand why people don't get it. Mountain. Now, a lot of you guys are going to understand this stuff, but what I want to do is empower you in finding out what works for your body in this moment. I always want to do that because there's this incredible amount of momentum and bullshit on the internet that tells you that if something's working, oh, it can't work, or it doesn't work, or there's something wrong with you if you used a certain technique or range of motion that worked. People are always like, hey, that's not perfect. That's not perfect form. So how can that work? How can that be a technique that works for a high level natural bodybuilder? So if you watch a lot of the pro natural bodybuilders or the pro unnatural bodybuilders, you'll notice that they use a number of techniques that aren't necessarily internet approved by the majority of the people out there, or a lot of the trolls anyway. People will have all sorts of justifications of why these techniques don't work and why it's wrong or right or whatever, but what's happening is that these people live in their frickin' minds. You know what I'm saying? So one thing that people have to understand is results are king, and if you're getting a result from something, then it means that there's something that's right about the technique that you're using. Maybe it can be improved upon. Maybe there can be some adjustments made for a different result. But if you're getting a result, and that result is muscular growth, strength, and you're not getting injured, then I'm more on your side when it comes down to applying such principles, such as partial reps for certain exercises in certain conditions, or maybe full reps for certain exercises, depending on what is happening with you and how your body moves. Now, one of the simple truths with bodybuilding, that it doesn't matter if your form is shit or not, if you don't get injured, if you use any range of motion or any exercise and you happen to get stronger or are able to get more strength endurance, like more reps, you are going to put on muscle. As long as there's some tension on that muscle and you are putting on some strength or putting on some reps, there's going to be some muscular growth, right? Now, I'm not talking about doing something really stupid so that you get injured or anything, but what I'm trying to say is that people seem to think that unless you're squatting ass to the floor, or unless you're touching your chest with a barbell when you're doing shoulder presses, that you're not going to get any results, and that's just not true. Sometimes when you use fuller ranges of motion, you get less results because now different parts of the body become weak links instead of the actual muscle. Sometimes you're fighting ligament stress or joint stress, and you're basically almost popping your shoulder out of the joint, and that's why you're basically not able to lift the weight, but it's not because the muscles are pushed to their absolute limits. So you have to take this into account. If you're looking for bodybuilding results, something this simple is actually the truth. So I get a lot of trolling all the time. A lot of people come on my channel, they're like, oh, what are those reps? Why are you doing those partials? Or what's wrong with you? You're not locking out on the top. Well, the point is that I'm trying to keep the stress on my muscle bellies, and at the same time, I have my own specific situation going on, such as a dislocated shoulder, such as a torn rotator cuff. These things play a role in what is going to be ideal for me to use as far as range of motion when it comes down to pressing movements, right? If my labrums were totally intact, maybe the range of motion would be different. Maybe the weights that I use would be different. Sometimes, case in point, sometimes because one shoulder is pushed forward, I have to be more in an angle when I'm pushing because one shoulder is in a different place in the joint. And this affects the range of motion on one side more than the other. So one side I come down farther than the other, right? So these are things that just happen when you have a certain amount of injuries or certain things that happen through sports, right? Another thing that people troll me with is like, oh, well, maybe you have injuries because you're doing the wrong range of motion. Well, no, that's like saying somebody that gets in a car accident trained wrong, and that's why they ended up with an injury, right? My main injuries actually happened from collisions in hockey. It had nothing to do with some sort of training accident or something like that. So that's my point. So strength and strength endurance, no matter what the range of motion, will lead to muscular gains, and that is a fact. Now, my main point of making this video is this. When you're training and when you're working out, you're going to have a lot of people have an opinion about what you're doing. But what I want you to remember is that results are king, and your own relationship with your body is king. When you're experiencing something and you're getting the results to back that up, then you must own that instead of constantly falling for the mind tricks, right? You know, these people are like cackling little birds in the background telling you what you should or shouldn't do, but they have no stake in your body. If you get injured, they don't care. If something happens to you, they have no consequence. All they want to do is control you. So what you want to do is own your results and own the discoveries that you're having from your own experiments, right? So if you're noticing that doing partial reps is working better for you or full reps are working better for you, then own that in this particular case, in this particular moment. Because as much as it's great to have willpower to push through workouts and to discipline yourself and to push yourself through adversity, you don't want to use willpower in the wrong way. And this is where most people in the fitness industry are messed up. And I was like this too. When I first started training, maybe when I was like in my 20s and stuff, I first started when I was around 14 years old, but when I was in my 20s, I would train, I would push through things that I shouldn't push through, like certain types of pains or certain types of tightness in a certain area. And of course, then I'd snap something or something would happen. So I started to learn that there was this conversation that's constantly going on between you and the body, and by listening to that, you can start to make adjustments as you go. But what a lot of people that are, you know, touting the whole alpha thing on the internet right now, you know, like, I'm not going to mention any names, but I used to work with one of these guys. But the bottom line is that they tout this whole alpha male type thing, be a massive carnivore, be a massive like monstrosity or something where you just overcome any environment and crush it and that sort of thing. And this is incredibly imbalanced, because what's happening is that you're going to push through a lot of things that are signals that are saying don't push. And if you do, something negative will happen to you. And at the same time, you'll ignore the subtleties of this whole thing called training. It's kind of like playing a musical instrument. You know when you play certain sounds that they're off, like they're off key, right? If you're playing in a certain song and then you work with whatever sound that feels like the most heavy metal, right? Say you're playing an electric guitar, there's going to be certain sounds that are totally off key. And although they might sound, real alpha, or, I don't even have the word for it, you know what I'm saying? But they might sound very aggressive, but they're not necessarily in alignment or in harmony with the actual tune. And your body is a song, and everything you do has to be in a certain amount of harmony with that. And you can tune it in order to get to greater harmonies, and you can push it in a certain way, but it has to be a balanced pushing, instead of just saying, oh, well, somebody on the internet said I should do ass to the grass squats, even though my knees are screaming every time I do that, and then I'm just gonna do that because some Bob 1234 Smith or whatever on YouTube told me that I should do that because that's the right thing to do, So you have to make sure that you're not following the mind, you're following what the body is showing you in any one moment, and then trying to push, and you're trying to see what pain to ignore and what pain to really pay attention to. And that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of wisdom to develop. So give yourself time in this. But this simple principle of just getting stronger and getting strength endurance is going to give you some sort of musculature. It doesn't have to be a perfect rep. It doesn't have to be a perfect weight that you're lifting. Like a lot of guys will talk about wheelbarrow carries, right? Where basically they're just basically doing really small steps, holding on to weights, and they're getting results with that. I mean, you can't get a smaller range of motion than that, but yet they're getting some sort of results. Or guys that are walking hills with weighted vests or dumbbells, right? They're getting awesome ass gains, calf gains, some hamstring gains, and some quad gains from that, but the range of motion is so small. So because of this, you have to make sure that you follow what is working. Just ignore everything that people are telling you if it's not in alignment with what you're noticing is going on with your body in the gym. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this helps out in your training, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters. And on Patreon, I'm doing a podcast every week about subjects such as these, and I get more in depth on a lot of these different subjects, and we get into a much longer conversation. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, make sure you go to my Patreon. The link is in the description, and you too can join the Natural Gallant Bodybuilding podcast. Natural Gallant.